Okay, now we all have a little extreme in us, whether it's Paul Heyman and Raven and Chris Candido and Shane Douglas, or even Steve Corino and Rhino. But what about the Hurricane? What about Zack Ryder? What about Christian and Colin Delaney?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Stoop YouTube channel. I'm, of course, Stoop, and today we are going to be talking about WWECW. Was it that bad? Because here's the way I look at it. I don't think it was that bad. Just to start off with. But I gotta give you a little backstory. So, let's start off from the beginning of ECW. ECW was started as a local indie promotion in Philadelphia named Eastern Championship Wrestling. And it was owned by Todd Gordon. It was Eastern Championship Wrestling for a year or two, and then they signed Paul Heyman. He was booking it for free, and he was working for free just because Todd Gordon couldn't afford to pay it. So, and then eventually, once Paul Heyman got the money, he bought ECW, Eastern Championship Wrestling, and in its place was Extreme Championship Wrestling, and that Extreme Championship Wrestling had a cult following from the ECW arena, and everybody watching at home, they were getting insane ratings. And ECW was really the start and the reason that the Attitude Era was a thing. So, over the next course of years, they still kept their cult following, putting on banger matches, signing everybody that they could, because Paul Heyman saw potential in literally everybody. Paul Heyman gave Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and Rey Mysterio, the three of them's first chances in America. And that's where Chris Benoit got his name, the Canadian Crippler, because he broke Sabu's neck. It was crazy. And then ECW kept trucking on. They had just putting on banger matches, and everybody loved ECW up until 2001, when Paul Heyman had basically left the promotion, left it all to Tommy Dreamer, for Tommy Dreamer to book everything and pay everybody. And eventually, just shit hit the wall. Like, Tommy Dreamer was trying to throw shit at the wall and hope that it stuck for ECW, but it was done. ECW was over. So, and then, the crowds would still chant ECW every time the Dudley Boys would put somebody through a table, or Rob Van Dam would hit a 5-star frog splash. And everybody from the ECW were in the Alliance when the Invasion angle happened, which, by the way, could have been so much more. It's one man's fault. Either way. So, most of the ECW guys were gone from WWE by the time One Night Stand 2005 happened. Because they weren't getting booked. Like, they weren't getting booked properly. Mike Awesome left. Just Incredible left. Lance Storm somehow managed a way to stay on television. I don't know how. And somehow some people stayed on, some people left. But then they released the Rise and Fall of ECW DVD. And that DVD did so good. It was massive. And then as soon as that started to happen, and as soon as the DVD started to take off, Vince McMahon got a light bulb in his head. And then Rob Van Dam pitched him an idea that was ECW One Night Stand 2005, basically a reunion show. And ECW One Night Stand 2005 is something special. I don't think it will ever be done ever again. ECW One Night Stand was something awesome. But after that happened, in 2006, they decided to have another One Night Stand. And that one had arguably more of a draw to it because Rob Van Dam was cashing in his Money in the Bank against John Cena at that show. Rey Mysterio was facing Sabu in a hardcore match. By the way, phenomenal match, but it did make the ECW crowd angry because it was ended by doctors. And then that kept getting the ball spinning until Vince McMahon decided to give ECW some airtime on Sci-Fi.
We hate this stinking network.
And it was June 7th, 2006. It was the first episode of ECW. And February 10th, 2010 was the last episode. So they lasted a good 4 years, but here was the problem. Or no, here's the evolution of WWECW. So WWECW was a show on Sci-Fi every week for about 45 minutes. And here's how it changed. At the start, it had people like Justin Credible and the Sandman and Rob Van Dam and Sabu and Tommy Dreamer. It had all those people, and it was barely building new talent. Like, it had Mike Knox and CM Punk and Kelly Kelly, but those were all people that really fit in with the breed that was ECW, original ECW. And they kind of stayed on for a year or two. Punk got called up. He got drafted to the main roster. Bobby Lashley eventually won the ECW championship. Like, the starting years of WWECW was good television. And the first match in WWECW was the Sandman versus the Zombie.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
And if you look at this on paper, it's wrestle crap. But it's not. And here's why. Because it was a squash match. It was purposefully a squash match. And it was cool. Like, the Sandman beat the shit out of the ECW Zombie. And when he was hitting him with the Singapore cane, like, you could see dirt flying off of him. It was cool. So, and all this stuff was awesome. Like, you had original ECW stuff. Like, you had cat fights. And you had Kelly Kelly trying to strip tease after CM Punk's matches, but Mike Knox was covering her up with a towel. It was awesome. It was original ECW stuff. But, and that stuff just kept going until around 2007, late 2007, early 2008, when it started to shift. You started to get people like Johnny Nitro. He won the ECW championship. And Christian and Matt Hardy and Zack Ryder and Yoshi Tatsu and Colin Delaney and Tommy Dreamer, but old Tommy Dreamer. They were starting to fill the shows more until there was barely any ECW originals left. So we did have people like Tommy Dreamer, but we had people that were candidates like Tommy Dreamer and Matt Hardy and Christian. They all could have been ECW originals, but Tommy Dreamer was. But we were filled more with new blood. So they were signing guys like Marcus Corvon and Bobby Lashley and Umaga and Johnny Nitro, and all these people would go straight to ECW, and they would perfect their craft until they would get called up. Just like NXT and FCW. So here's why WWECW wasn't bad. it was basically WWE's developmental brand before they had a developmental brand. They had people like Zack Ryder get a gimmick. He created the Long Island Loudmouth, woo woo woo, and he perfected it until he got called up. So this is what changed. At the start of ECW, you had a bunch of ECW originals: Sandman, Dreamer, Rob Van Dam, Sabu, Balls Mahoney, and at the end, they were fizzling out the ECW originals, and they were having new guys, just like NXT does. So by the end, it was basically just NXT, and it was great. WWECW was not bad. I'm sure they did have some bad stuff, but I rewatched the first episode and the last episode, and both of them were good. So what I'm getting at here is WWECW wasn't bad at all. There were some bad matches, but besides that, it was good. There were some bad, because WWECW wasn't trying to be ECW. It was trying to be WWECW. It was Vince McMahon's brainchild of what ECW should have been. So that's it. WWECW wasn't that bad. It had good stuff. It was good television. And honestly, there's not much bad I can say about it. So, without further ado, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know if you enjoyed it in the comments. Subscribe if you want to. Leave a like if you want to. But, anyway, yeah.